Hello friends, and welcome to a new video. In today's video I'm going to show you how I made the top and the skirt for my Rosetta cosplay, and if you want to see it all come together with the wig and the makeup and the wings, make sure you go ahead and stick around till the end. So we're going to go ahead and use this Belle pattern from Simplicity. We're just going to do the bodice without the shoulder bits. Now here's the secret, is people follow the body measurements to pick what size that they need to do. That's trash. Go down here to the bottom where it says finished garment measurements and base it off of that. Now I don't want it to be a zipper. This is intended to be a zipper. I want it to lace up, so I do want an inch or two extra. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick a 35 finished measurement. So I'm gonna cut out size 10. Here I've already cut out all of my fabric pieces, and I've already attached my interfacing pieces to my fabric pieces for the bodice. I like to lay everything out in a big open space just so I can make sure that they're all pinned together correctly. With all these different pieces going on, it's really easy to confuse pieces and sew them to the wrong sides, so this is just what I do to help prevent that. I ran out of boning casing before this project, so for this project I decided to just go ahead and cut out some 1/2" twill tape to sew down and be my casing for my boning. I like to put my boning right at the seam, so before I sew it down I decided to just go ahead and trim down my seam allowance so that the twill tape would completely cover the seam allowance, just so it's a little bit prettier on the inside. After I got all the boning in and sewn up the last of the boning casing, I went ahead and I pinned my lining to my fabric, and then I'm going to go ahead and sew those at the top and the bottom and flip them inside out. At this point I had held the bodice up to me to see how the fit was going, and it had a couple inches too big at the bust area, so I decided to just go ahead and take my rotary and just slice off a little bit of each side, making sure that I had it matched on each side just so it would fit me a little bit better. To finish up the edges, I just turned in the raw edges so that I could sew down a straight line. To mark where I want my grommets to go, I just took a heat-sensitive pen and my ruler and I marked every 1.5 inch. To make my holes for my grommets, I just took these little scissors and I made the tiniest little holes that I possibly could so that I could stretch the fabric around the grommet and make sure that it was holding it tightly in place. For this project, I used 3/16 of an inch grommets in a rose red color so that they would blend in with my fabric choice. Okay, so here are my pieces for the Modesty panel. The Modesty panel is just what goes in the back of the bodice, so that after you lace up all of these grommets, there's usually some skin left in the middle, and so the Modesty panel goes underneath, and so you'll just see a continuation of pink instead of seeing skin. So pretty much we're going to have these two right sides together and then just a thick piece of interfacing in between to help it stay stiff so that it lays right. So I'm just going to iron all of this and then stitch it up at the sides and then flip it inside out and then just sew it into the back of the bodice. To sew in the Modesty panel, I just pinned it into place just past the grommets so that I could hand sew it carefully into place. When I hand sewed it, I made sure just to catch the lining side of the fabric and not sew it all the way to the outside. That way there were no visible stitches from the outside of the piece. I wasn't able to find a pattern that I liked for Rosetta Skirt, so I ended up just drafting one myself. It was really easy. I just measured on myself how long I wanted the skirt to be, and so that was that first marking I made, and then I just added another inch on top of that just so I could have some seam allowance for the skirt itself, and then I just drew that whole bar across so I could see what I was working with. After that, I went ahead and I just kind of drew out a free-handed petal shape to work with. Here I'm just marking on my pattern piece things that you would typically see on a pattern piece. You see that there's on the fold so that I can make sure both sides are symmetrical. I wrote down that it was just Rosetta Skirt, and then I wrote down that I would need 5 pieces for it. To finish the edges of my skirt pieces, I just went ahead and used my overlocker and used a rolled hem on them. Next, I had to line up all of the skirt pieces. I had made it so that there was enough pieces that they could overlap, but I hadn't figured out exactly how much they were going to overlap. So if you're trying to follow this along and make a similar skirt, here's the math that I did. Basically, I ended up with panels that were 11 inches long, and I had 5 of them, so that's 55 inches. And then my waist is actually 30 inches, so that gave me 25 inches of excess. So I just had to overlap each panel by 5 inches for it to fit my waist properly. I hope you all followed along with that. To make my waistband for the skirt, I ended up making my own bias tape basically to go over the edge of the skirt. It's not going to be seen when it's worn, so there's no reason that you couldn't just buy some bias tape, but it's pretty easy to make, so I just went ahead and cut out some long strips on the bias, and then I used my bias tape maker to fold it over. To make it a little bit easier, I just trimmed off the very top of the skirt so that there wouldn't be any raw edges, and then I just went ahead and put that bias tape right over the edge, and I just sewed it down with a straight stitch. To double check the skirt sizing, I just went ahead and held it up to me, and I marked right where the overlap would naturally sit, and then I just sewed in a couple snaps, one right at the very edge and then one at the end of the inside of the skirt, and then those 2 snaps held it all together. Okay, so I'm pretty much done. I finished sewing in my Modesty panel, so the bodice is pretty much done other than adding rat tail to actually tie it up, and then the skirt that you can see over here on my dress form is done. Thing is, it looks just a little bit, tiny bit plain right now, so I'm gonna go ahead and add some bedazzles to it. I have this little packet of Hot Fix rhinestones in all different sizes here, so we're gonna kind of just do a bit of a gradient with some bigger ones to some smaller ones. I hate bedazzling, it takes forever. So it's 9:18 right now, so we'll see how long this takes. So here is the final look. This is just a sneak peek at my photo shoot that I had for this costume with Sarah Photography. If you're interested in seeing more of my Rosetta costume, be sure to click subscribe. In the next couple weeks, I'll be having a video on how I did my makeup and the wig styling for this character, as well as a vlog on this photo shoot that you're seeing right now. If you're interested in the fairy wings, be sure to check out Fairy Tales by Deanna. That's where I got them. I'll be sure to link her down below, as well as all of the supplies that I used to make this costume. If you like this video, go ahead and click that like button and make sure you share this with a friend who loves fairies. See you guys next week. Thanks for watching.